and outside the limits of the Roman colony is where Romans built the circus. Sometimes we confuse circus with amphitheater, but I told you that amphitheater means actually double theater, and that's the oval size, the oval shape we have on the what we usually call in Rome the Colosseum, the one we've just seen in Merida. Valuable blocks of granite of the seats and so on disappeared. But the structure, 400 meters long per 105 meters width, is still really visible. We are going through the curb where the laps were made. They make the turns, so it's really visible. It's just behind the brick building we can see to our left. Stone for building everything around, and especially water supply houses. But luckily, when this was excavated at the beginning of 20th century in the fields that surrounded Merida, there was nothing around. So you can see the central wall, the place for the public, and the curb which is right next to us to the left. So all medieval churches made in Roman or in Merida, in medieval Merida, were actually made with Roman remains. You have one to your left, and they are really we can actually easily identify the blocks of granite because they have the shape that Romans used to carve, and second, because many times the blocks of granite show holes in the middle that were those holes made formerly by Romans in order to lift and to place the stones with cranes. So that, and those blocks are really Roman. You see the holes in some of them? So it's easy to recognize, especially they use them on the buttresses and on the main facade. And springs of water, so they just build aqueducts in order to bring the water from those from those springs into the town. Merida counted with 4 aqueducts. We are going to see remainings of the 2 major ones, one called of San Lázaro, and that brought the superficial waters from the fields around the area where we are now. But of the destroyed aqueduct from the earthquake in 1521 was made, and what we are going to see is actually 2 aqueducts. The remainings actually of the Roman one, and just 2-3 meters away from that one, we are going to see the remainings of the second one built in 16th century. Obviously, the second one is on a better stage, as we are going to see in of the circus. Here we have it to the left, and immediately to your right, we'll see the 2 aqueducts. The first one that we can see is one from 16th century. The statue of Santa Eulalia, the image of Santa Eulalia in this town, that the statue, the image, is not inside the church on the main altar, but in this case is actually outside in the street. And in 17th century they built a sort of shrine or a small hermitage of the church next to the street we are going to see right now, in order that everybody could pray for a moment on their way through the street without being forced to get into the church. The church is already to your right, and we are going slowly just to have a look to this structure built with the remains of a temple devoted to Mars in 17th century, and it's inside that grill where you have the image of Santa Eulalia that everybody stops. Every time I come here, there's always somebody praying in front of that grill. Because of the number, but because one realizes that there are people devoted to count stork nests, which is really amazing. But yes, we do have people doing that. And you are going to see very good ones in a moment on top of the pillars of the former aqueduct, which has a length of nearly half a mile in this section, the one much more visible and better preserved. The aqueduct is already appearing to your right, and although we call this the aqueduct, this is nothing but the structure that supported the aqueduct, because the aqueduct was nothing but the channel on top of that structure, and this is the only part we are missing right now. So you can see the structure from here. Actually, the aqueduct is the channel for bringing the water, but when arriving to a valley like this one, they had a problem whether they do a siphon, and the pressure probably make the siphon to split in pieces, or they just maintain the slope with big arches like in here, like they did it in here, and the channel just goes down, falling down with a slope of 1-2%. It was all measured, and it was all made like this for a simple reason. If the water with 1% of slope fall or run slowly. That's better for not erosion, the erosion of the channel inside. To build it very quickly. Augustus that we have, by the way, in the middle of the roundabout that we are passing right now, that's a copy in bronze of a statue that you can see in Rome called the Augustus of Prima Porta. A polychrome marble statue, and this is nothing but a copy. So there we are, we have the Guadiana, the islands that made possible that even before Romans arrived, the river was much easier to be crossed than in other points where the river was wide and with dangerous streams. And they were right. I mean, the place chosen for founding the colony was actually the best. The Roman bridge is on our left, you can see it. It's hard to see completely because it's so long that it's actually difficult to see. We are coming the other way of the bridge and you'll see much better the bridge from the other side. Difference, these sections that have been rebuilt.
That's the Roman bridge.
We see the islands again. The big one, the big island is in front to the right. That's the biggest one. And you see there's another bridge behind the Roman one. That was the second one built in the town. So from 25 BC up to 1950, there was nothing but the Roman bridge to cross. So in the 50s they built the second, and in the 90s they built this one. This was the city wall and parts of a Roman house and a street very clearly visible now here. For visiting, they are really glad that it's so rich in Roman remainings. Those living in here, they just want to cry. Because every time they want to demolish a house for building a new one, they are really afraid that something from Roman times might be found. In the 16th century, that was very common on those times, to reuse columns and capitals and marbles and so on. So most of the decoration you are going to see inside the Parador, where you are staying, is from Roman times.
And we all scratched our heads like, what the heck is a Ben-Hur? It was Ben-Hur.
Oh.
The Ben-Hur, the Ben-Hur. The Ben-Hur, the Ben-Hur. Oh, I used to crack up every time. Oh, wait, they don't normally have competition. And he got a little confused with the building. The building he was talking about was the bridge. I think he meant to say the construction. That's a little tricky. On the right there, though, that's the Roman bridge and the bridge of Calatrava. Did you like how he said that every time they had incoming enemies, they just took out a chunk of the bridge? Like. Bridges for the expo site from 1992 where I worked. More of those pretty pink flowers across the way as well.